Alright, so check it out. I know that I said in the last video what we're going to be doing next is working on this timer right here. However, in kind of thinking things through, I saw some issues that we're going to run across. And the first one was this. So in our code, what the original plan was to go ahead and log the request date. And then whenever we get that response back, to go ahead and log the response date. And then once we calculate the difference between those, it would essentially give us our speed right here. However, the issue with that is that by default, these dates, they only are accurate enough down to the second. So again, here's the date and here's the time, hour, minute, second. And that's not gonna offer enough accuracy for our use case. So instead of using just this, what we're gonna be using is instead, we'll use the get time function from JavaScript, and that's going to allow us to tap into milliseconds. So on that note, what we'll do is actually keep this request date, even though we may have two sources of truth. I like it because we'll keep the date logged out for this column right here. However, in addition to that, we will also get the request time. And again, this is going to be a number, which is going to be in milliseconds. And then we are also going to change this response date to response time. And this is going to be equal to a number or null. And let me just see where response date. Okay. So now I think I only need to change it here where we say response time equals null. And also whenever we're setting runs, this request time is now a required field. So request time, and we're just going to set this equal to the current date. And instead of this, which is going to give us the actual date, we'll call get time on it. I'll show you what this is, give you the proper definition. So get time returns the number of milliseconds since Unix, I don't even know how to say the word, not going to embarrass myself. But point is, it's going to give us that millisecond accuracy. And all right, so this is looking good. Let me just check one more time to make sure that response, okay. And another thing that I think that I want to do, yeah, I'm going to add one more run status here, and that is just for error. Because what I'll say is this. So whenever we first fire off this request, it's of course going to be pending. We know what success is whenever we get a valid pong message back. Timeout will have that if the request is taking longer than 10 seconds, then we're going to go ahead and time it out. However, this error right here is if we send the request and there's an issue with the core server, in other words, we can't even communicate with that device at all, then we're just going to set it equal to error. So I want to differentiate like a server error from a device timeout. And in addition to both of those things, another thing that I want to do is right now, actually, let me pop open this component. All right, so our main button is enabled as long as we have a valid connection, but that logic isn't quite good enough because what I want to do is to say not only disable this if you are not connected, but also whenever we have a pending request and we haven't received a response yet, then I also want to disable this because I want to keep it nice and simple where I don't want like multiple requests pending at a time, just because I wouldn't even know what to do with the timer. So anyways, I'm going to create a custom hook and we'll pick off to see if there's a pending run. And if so, then we'll also disable this button. So under my hooks, I'll call this use pending run. All right, now let me import everything. All right, so const use pending run. And what this is going to do, if I can type, is it's going to return either a run or I'll say return undefined if you can't find any. All right, and actually let me go ahead and just So make sure I don't forget to export it. All right, and how are we going to write this? Well, first thing I want to do is we need to get the runs, and in order to do that, pull the runs from Redux, wrote that get run selector, and now from here, kind of just like user connected. Okay, I don't need to copy that, not that lazy. So return use memo. All right, so how do we do this? So okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm first gonna order these, and I will order them by this request time, and then I'll find the latest one that's pending. And this is just so if there's like multiple runs pending, which should never happen, but we'll count for all this logic as well. So const ordered runs, I'm going to call order by, and since I just want the run objects and not the keys, I'll say object values runs. And for this, order by what field do I want to sort by? The request time. And let me think about this. So since this is a number of milliseconds since the Unix state, we want to order it descending from highest to lowest. I think that makes sense. All right. Well, for some reason, whenever have to like order dates, I always get it wrong. I don't know why. It's kind of weird. Dates just don't mesh in my head very well. All right. So once we have those ordered runs, what we're going to do is we are going to find a run that has the status of run status pending. So find the run where the status equals run status pending. And now this should be runs. Add some semicolons in. All right. So again, all this is doing is it's finding the most recent pending run. And if I don't have any pending runs, then it's just going to return undefined. And now what I can do is back in my component, use is connected and also use pending run. All right, now, actually I want to use this in a couple locations. So I'm gonna split out this enabled logic into a separate function because I'm gonna use it in two places. One, to pass into this styled component to know if it should disable that button to make it appear gray or not. And I also want to stick it right here because if the button is not enabled, then I just want to make sure that this click handler doesn't follow through. So with that being said, let me go ahead and make a new memoize function. I'll say use memo. I probably need to import this. Use memos in React, right? I believe so. All right, so use memo is going to be the function. It's going to return a Boolean. And all right, let me think if there's anything else. Oh, this is good for now. So I'll say the button is enabled if you are, first of all, connected, and also there is no pending run. And now for these dependencies, should be both of those. And all right, so now what I can do is I can swap out this is connected for a more proper enabled, and also right here as well. And now just make sure nothing broke. And for some reason, whenever we create new hooks or update a hook, yeah, actually have to close this and restart the entire thing. All right. And I can't test this out because I actually have my MacBook closed, but I really just want to make sure nothing is breaking for a second, and it looks all right. Now, another kind of housekeeping item that I'm going to do is I'm going to restructure this click handler right here, because what I want to do is actually Yeah, let me go ahead and pull out this run because I want to throw this request in a try catch statement. And if the server throws back an error, then I want to update this run status to be this new error status. So let me do that right now. How am I going to do this? So I'll say const run, set this equal to this. And for the run ID, I can probably just do this. All right. So first and foremost, this is going to dispatch this run. And I also want to wrap this in a try catch. So try. All right, so try to dispatch this run to our Redux store, and then after that, go ahead and send a request to send this block, and as the params, since we got rid of that variable, we'll say the run ID is equal to the run's run ID. Now, hopefully nothing breaks, but just in case, if it does, we're gonna say console error. Just log out the error in the console. And aside from that, what I want to do is I want to pretty much do this. So if we do get an error, then we're just going to update the status of this run in Redux. So spread out the run. Since everything's the same, the only thing that we need to update is the status, and it will set equal to run status.error. Just like this. And I actually think that, let me think this through for a second. Yeah, I also think I need a state variable to set even before this, because I believe that this entire function is going to be called before this. Well, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Don't want to just sit here listen to me mumbling. So I'm also going to create a new variable to say request pending, and I'll say set pending, and this is going to be equal to a boolean, which is going to be false by default. All right, why am I getting an error here? Oh, use state, not use pending run. Embarrassing. So let me go ahead and write this, and then I'll explain why I wrote it. So as soon as we fall into this try block, then I want to set request pending equal to true. And then I'm going to set that equal to false right after this catch statement, actually kind of like a finally. So false right here. And now with this variable request pending should be true as soon as, well, even before the request is actually pending, before we even dispatch anything to the Redux store, and then it'll toggle off at the end of all this. But I'll say that this is enabled if you're connected, if there's no pending run, and also if you don't have any request pending, and then I just need to update these. And all right. Now the reason that I said that I wanted that is because whenever this function is called, this handle click function, again, we have functionality to disable the button if there's a request pending. However, for this pending run, it's gonna check the Redux store. Now, that's all and well. However, I don't believe that check or that re-render can take place until this function itself is done executing. So that's why I wanna set it right here, just to be 100% certain that there isn't gonna be any race conditions. And for example, if the user, I have to restart it again. But anyways, just to make sure that if the user is like clicking this button 100 times, like as fast as they can, then it isn't going to fire off multiple requests. This should do the trick. So now let me actually go ahead and quit and restart, and just to make sure that everything is good up until this point. All right, I got my MacBook open too. So what we can do is actually like try to break this in a way. So let me go ahead and open this MacBook. This is interesting. So this is disabled. and I have a feeling I know why. I don't think it is any of the code that we wrote. There's probably a pending run. All right, I'm not gonna scroll through all these, but I have a feeling that there is a pending run in here from last time. So eventually what I want to do is like have a little button down here that says clear history. But for the time being, a little trick, and I don't even know if I would call it a trick as much as like bad practice maybe, but in this store initializer, actually it's not even bad practice. Instead of pulling in the initial runs using the Electron store, what we can do is just temporarily set this to an empty dict, and then whenever I boot this app up again, it's basically just going to reset all of my runs. So alright, the app is booted, and now I'll show you what I'm talking about. All those runs that were in there from last time, if I check my speed test runs now, you see it just set it to an empty dict. So now let me go ahead and quit this yet again. Must be an easier way than this, I know. But now, when I go ahead and restart this, shouldn't have any pending runs in there, and then we can do a little mini QA sesh. Alright, so minimize U. Pull up my console. Get it all nice and pretty. Alright, much better. So let me go ahead and just look at my network inspector to make sure I can't fire off too many requests. So first, just clicking it at our normal speed. All right, I forgot this too. So what happens because we didn't, I'll show you what's going on here. So in our listener, our pong listener, what it's supposed to do whenever we get that pong response back is it's gonna say, I'm gonna update this run where it's no longer pending, but it's success now. However, since we didn't write that yet either, I'll show you in Redux, we are stuck with this one pending run right here with no response time, and again, like I said, it's still pending. But point is that everything looked properly up until that point, but yeah, got some work to do from here. Now to save some time, let me actually just go ahead and update this pong listener right now. So let me pause the video and I'll see you in just a second. All right, so check it out. I got the pong listener written, and just to make sure we don't skip over any logic, I'll go ahead and talk through this right now. So what I'm doing in the pong listener is kind of just doing the same validation as before, but after I check that the UUID, or the run ID, should I say, is a valid UUID, then I'm gonna look for that run in Redux. And then once I find that run, this is just making sure that it exists. And after that, I'm validating the network ID. Actually, let me go in here. So when validating the network ID, I want to ensure that the block ID, or in other words, the network that this response was sent over, was the same one that matched my run. Since, for example, I don't want to be sending the ping request over the New Boston network and having it respond through the Vataxia network, because, well, it's kind of the point of the speed test to test how fast the single network is. Another thing that I'm validating is this run recipient right here. And this, I have no idea when this could possibly happen, but I figured might as well have it, that the block sender matches the run recipient. In other words, I don't want to send a block to like my MacBook and have my Linux desktop send it back. Again, I have no idea when on earth that could possibly happen, but I just want to make sure whenever we validate this data that everything's covered. And then another thing that I'm doing is I'm validating the run status to make sure that whenever we receive a response back, then the run that we're trying to update is still pending. And I do that because if I already timed out the run, or if the run is already successful for some reason, then we don't want to like update it again. So anyways, once this is all valid and we ensure that, yes, it's a pending run, I just sent you that request and I'm expecting this response back, then what we're going to do is we're going to set the response time to whatever the current time is, and then we'll use this response time in just a sec for both the timer and also the history table, and then this just sets it equal to success. And also with this, I'll show you, let me clear out my blocks. So I'm gonna be clicking this a bunch, and you see that that disabled state is working correctly right now, where the containers main button, this, and that is because as soon as I click that button, it is going to set this request pending state variable to true, and that is going to alter this enabled state. And of course, this enabled state doesn't allow me to click it again, and it also toggles on that disabled styling for the button. So yeah, everything is looking pretty good so far. And actually, let me just show you what's going on in Redux with one of these. So whenever I kick this off, it's going to send a request. We're going to get that pong response back, which is going to update this run. And then whenever this run is updated, again, it's going to set the response time and update it to success in Redux. So now pretty much Redux is populated with all the correct data. The only thing that we need to do now is update the UI, and that should be a piece of cake, at least compared to all the logic that we wrote already. So smooth sailing from here on out. See you guys next video.